So, like I said, my job is to keep this moving. We have some great presentations. Actually, the first presentation is on ensuring the health of your small business. And the young lady who's going to be speaking, I see her back there. If you can start making your way up here. She's the Economic Justice Project Director from the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights and Economic Justice. I know that Ivan here, the Executive Director, Ivan Espinosa, is here as well. She was appointed to this role just this year. She served as a staff attorney. She was a fellow. She was an intern. She went to Northeastern University. Now, she went to middle school in England and went to high school in Singapore. And her all-time, this was, she said, this was the movie that she cannot, when it's on TV, she cannot like turn away from it and turn the channel. And when she told me the movie, I said, wow, that's really ironic, because this is the one movie that if I see it's on, I definitely turn the channel. So her favorite is The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. So ladies and gentlemen, Priya Lane. Priya.
Hi, everybody. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, great. Thank you. As you said, I'm the Economic Justice Project Director at the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights and Economic Justice. And the Economic Justice Project is just sort of our fancy way of talking about the small business work we do. We call it EJP for short. So it's a project of the Lawyers Committee, and we provide immigrant, minority, and low-income entrepreneurs and small business owners with free business and legal assistance. And we do that through a whole host, of variety of ways that I'm going to walk you through today and talk about some different options we have. One of our main things that I think would be most probably apt for the small business owners in this room is our Access to Business Law seminar. So that one is for, you're a small business owner, maybe you've been in business for a little while, but you haven't necessarily really gotten those like key legal issues down. Maybe there's some things that you're not sure about, you didn't have the time for, you're expected to be everything when you're a small business owner, right? And so sometimes a lot of things fall by the wayside. So what we do is we have every Thursday night from 6 to 8, we have a class the next one is running from March 16th to May 4th. And each week is taught by a different presenter who's an expert in whatever field they're presenting in. That way you have the opportunity to know me and the Lawyers Committee and all the resources we have, but also 10 other speakers who are experts in their different fields. And so I'm going to walk you through the classes a little bit because it'll also give you kind of a sense of legal topics that are important to think about. Week 1 is entity formation. So a lot of the, if you're in business for a while, you probably either have an entity or have an idea of what your entity is. But it's important to really kind of take the time to think about that and look through the different options because, you never know. Sometimes your business needs to grow. Sometimes maybe at the beginning when you first incorporated, you didn't know what was best for you and maybe you got some bad advice or maybe at the time that worked for you and now it doesn't. So we go through all the different options and kind of in depth and talk about all the implications of what that means for you and your business. Maybe you want to change entity, or maybe like many of our clients, we found when they came to us, they thought that they were incorporated. So a lot of small businesses in the city have filed DBAs, as you should, with the city of Boston, and think that that means that you have the same legal protections as you would if you were legally incorporated. That is in fact not true. And so if you are sued, without incorporation, someone comes to your business, they falls, someone sues you for a contract, all sorts of things, they can reach your personal assets, and we don't want that, right? We don't want them to take the money that you use to feed your kids and pay your mortgage and things like that. And so it's really important to make sure that that's all squared away. Week 2 is location and permitting that we do in partnership. Priya from the city of Boston is actually here today. And so that's a really, really important class because, sometimes in the beginning it works out, you find a space, you start working, and everything's going fine. But in fact, there's a lot of hidden pitfalls that you might not have thought about. So permitting, we had a client who just finished up our Access to Business Law seminar, which finished up this week actually. and she does a very cool cycle composting business. So she rides around on a bicycle, picks up people's compost, composts it, and delivers it back. It's an interesting business idea, right? So she came, and she has been in business for around 5 months and thought that, hey, everything's fine, I'm doing this well. And then she came to our location and permitting class, and then was like, oh, I should just check. So she went home and she called the city that she lives in, and found out, in fact, that she needed 7 permits that she did not have. And they were all 100% free, right? And so, she just needed inspectors to come out, sign off on something, but it would have been a huge issue if, in fact, she didn't have those permits and something had happened. There would have been, some severe liability there. And so getting everything squared away might not be expensive, right? It might be 100% free, but it might be a really important step to think about. Locations is another thing, maybe you're thinking about moving, maybe you're thinking about expanding, or maybe you're thinking about finally, investing in kind of a brick and mortar location. It's important to think about parking, T accessibility. We often have a lot of restaurateurs who come in who think that they want to be the only restaurant in any certain area, which is actually, kind of a bad idea, right? Because there might be a reason that there's not a restaurant there. And also, if you're a Chinese restaurant and you're right next to an Italian restaurant, I go to Italian food, I see your restaurant, I'll come back. It's actually good to be near other restaurants. So things like that small business owners haven't necessarily thought of, or maybe, think sort of differently of. We like to kind of get into that and talk about some of the different options. The next week is insurance. Another thing that I think can easily sort of fall by the wayside when you're a small business owner, you don't need insurance until you need it, right? And then it's like a huge issue that you don't have it. And so thinking about the different kinds of policies, a lot of small business owners end up overpaying for their insurance because they get one of those like larger plans that cover more things than they need. But also a lot of small business owners are underinsured, and sometimes you've signed something with your landlord that says that you'll carry general liability insurance up to a certain amount, and you don't have it, and then what happens if something happens, right? And so we have an insurance broker who comes in, who talks about those issues, and he specializes in working with small businesses, so he really kind of understands the different pathways there. The next 2 weeks are employment. Employment law is so important that we gave it 2 weeks. Massachusetts has a lot of strict penalties against misclassifying your employees, so classifying them as independent contractors versus employees. And they're stricter than federal law, so that means if you would just Google it, if you were reading a resource from another state or something, you might have been led astray. And sometimes your employees say, I'm okay with it, just classify me as an independent contractor. They might be okay with it, but the state is not okay with it. And there are really severe, both civil and criminal penalties for misclassifying workers in Massachusetts. And so, so that we spend one whole day on that, and then we spend another day on kind of HR issues, benefits. I think you're about to hear about the Affordable Care Act, different HR things, how to fire, how to hire, what you can ask, what you shouldn't ask, what leaves you open to a lot of liability and things like that. And so, things you might not think about, because when you first started, maybe you said, okay, it's just me, it doesn't really matter. But then now you're growing, and now you have employees, or unless you're an LLC, you are an employee of your company, and you need to think about things that way too. And so it's an important thing to sort of look at. The next day is taxes. Everyone has tax questions. We have a tax attorney who spends all of her time doing people's taxes and thinking about corporate taxes, come in and teach that class. And there's, speaking earlier about entity, there's a lot of different tax implications depending on which entity you chose for your business. There's a lot of different, tax issues. When do I file? How do I pull state taxes? When do I file state taxes? How do I properly keep all those records? So we go through that. The next day is intellectual property, which, you might not think is important now, right? And it might not be in the early stages of your small business. But as you grow, and we're hoping that you all will grow, you're going to have competitors who are going to try to copy your logo, try to copy your, your intellectual property. And learning how and when are the right time to start thinking about legal protections for those is important. Everyone has a website now. You should, maybe not register it, but everyone should copyright their website. Things like that that are sort of easy things to do now, and things to think about in the future. Also, everyone thinks they need a patent. You probably don't. And so, it's an interesting thing to sort of go through and think about, what will I need in the future? What is not something I have to worry about? Things like that. All of our seminar series culminate in a legal clinic, which is a really great opportunity to sort of cap off the 8 weeks. And so you will meet with an attorney from one of the major law firms in the city. This one was with Latham, but we have partnerships with all of the law firms, basically all the big ones in the city of Boston, and a lot of the ones kind of outside as well. And so 20 to 30 minutes with an attorney where you can kind of think about the things, pull out the topics that you learned in the seminar and kind of apply them to your business, right? So week 1, we talked about entity formation. I think I want to be an LLC, or I think I want to be an S Corp. This is my specific situation. What do you think? Does that make sense? That's a common question. Or I have these employees that I'm classifying as independent contractors. Do you think that's okay, or are they not? And so you can kind of, it gives you a nice opportunity to, any lingering questions you have coming out, to get hopefully some concrete answers and some steps moving forward from that. So that's our Access to Business Law seminar. They're in the blue folders that are outside. It's a whole packet of materials, which includes the flyer for the Access seminar. Please grab one. It tells you how to register on it. The class is actually filling up really fast, even though it doesn't start till March. So I encourage you, if you're interested, to come talk to me, register. Any questions? Our next seminar that I'm going to talk about a little more briefly, but is called Create Your Own Job. That one is more maybe a precursor to the Access to Business Law, but it's still important if maybe you never thought about the business planning aspects of your business. So it's important to have a business plan because, one, it helps you organize your own thoughts, right? Because, running your small business is all in your head, but you want to put it on paper. And so this class gives you an opportunity to kind of learn how to organize that and think about it. Also, if you're doing things like thinking about going to somewhere for financing or things, they might ask you, do you have a business plan? Can I see it? And so, even though you were doing fine on your own, maybe you're looking to grow and you want to get some extra cash to do that, this is the time to sort of put it all down. So that one is going to be running March through May, the next one as well. We run that at Roxbury Community College. And the weeks in that one are similar, but a little bit more business focused versus the Access to Business Law, which is more legal focused. So the first day is business planning, where we give just an overview of what a business plan looks like, the different components of business plans. And then the following weeks are basically parts of the business plan more in depth. So the next week is personal and business finances. How do I do a break-even analysis? Do I need to, how do I calculate costs and benefits? Surprisingly, a lot of people don't actually know how much they need to make to break even. And, that's a question that, any sort of backer is going to probably ask you. A legal workshop where we talk about entity formation, but also about contract issues. You're going to enter into a ton of contracts, right, in running your small business. Subcontractors, leases, all sorts of things. A marketing and social media workshop, which is always really fun. Learning how to use social media, Facebook, Instagram. Snapchat is the new thing to use for your small business to reach millennials. It's really cool. You can purchase Snapchat filters for relatively cheap at any given location. You can target areas, and you can advertise on it. So you can say, buy one, get one free if you take a picture with this filter. And so someone takes a picture. So it's a cool way to get people who are of that age group who are really heavily using Snapchat to come. Public speaking, where you can learn how to really effectively market yourself. We talk about a pitch. So say you're going to a lender and you're asking for money. Well, how do you kind of present yourself in that piece? Or we do kind of a fun exercise where we make you all pretend that you're at a networking event And how do you introduce yourself to like a group of people? That's just sort of scary things that a lot of people have never had to deal with until it's time to sort of really network yourself. And so sort of hints and stuff to break in there. And then that one also culminates in a legal clinic, which is similar. Any lingering questions you have coming out of it, how are we going to sort of put like concrete answers to that? We also have a ton of series that are based off of those, but are more industry specific. One of the, I think, most fun ones is Food Biz 101. So we do that with Commonwealth Kitchen, which is this awesome food incubator out of Dorchester. They have a huge kitchen space where you can become basically a member of Commonwealth Kitchen and use their industrial kitchen. Say you want to start selling cookies at farmers markets, you would go there, bake your cookies, take them to the farmers market, and then avoid like a lot of pitfalls that people run into when it is actually illegal to make things in your home unless it's properly zoned for it, and sell it. And so this is your way sort of around that, and they have state-of-the-art equipment, and it's really great. And so we do it there at their space, and it's really similar to the Access and the Create Your Own Job seminars, but we have some food-specific classes like how do I cost out goods? How if I'm used to making 12 cupcakes, how do I make 300 cupcakes? It is not just multiplying it by 300, which is what I got. It's actually like complicated food math. And also, on the legal side, labeling, right? It's there can be huge ramifications not properly labeling your food if you're selling it in packages. And so, what are the regulations around that? What are the resources there to help you with that? And so, if you are a food business, please come talk to me. We're running the next one starting in February, and we would love to have you. And there is also a flyer for that in the folder. And then I'm just going to kind of briefly talk about our additional programming. We have sort of pop-up workshops that are less time commitment than the 8 to 10 week series that we run. Basically, one a month. So we had one last night that was on how to become a minority and woman certified business. That is important because unlike, kind of what you would think, like I'm a minority and a woman and I own a business, therefore I'm a minority and woman's business. That's actually not true. There is a certification process. And so kind of talking you through the steps on how to start thinking about that. Is it worth it, the time commitment or not? Thinking about that. We also had a finance series which Axion participated in, and to learn about different lending options for your small business. A different kind of we had micro lenders like Axion, and then we have a bank on Thursday. So what are the two different options, and actually more than two, multiple different options to find financing. I think a lot of our small businesses have been told no, right? No, you're not going to find financing. It's not a possibility. Your credit score is too low. You owe too much, something like that. When in fact that's not true. And Axion's here today, and we'll tell you more about that, I'm sure. We also have pop-up legal clinics, which is just like the legal clinic I talked about earlier, but standalone. So maybe you have like a really pressing question and you don't need full representation on it, but you're just confused about something and you want a half an hour to talk to an attorney about it. We run those frequently, and so you can sign up for those. Come into a firm, meet with an attorney for a half an hour, get your questions answered, and kind of move on from there. And so it's a great way to kind of fill some stop gaps you might have. So once again, if you are interested in anything or you want to talk more about anything, I'll be here. Come talk to me after and grab a folder too. The last thing that we do is individual representation. So as I said before, we partner with all these big firms in the city. And by doing that, we have the ability to sort of really expand our reach. And so you come to me, the intake form is in this folder, fill out the form, we have a conversation about what your small business needs are, what you could use an attorney for, maybe you're like me, yes, I do want to incorporate. Well, we can help you find an attorney for that. We'll do it for free. And then, minority, immigrant, woman-owned businesses who often don't have the resources that other businesses do still deserve that same quality of really high care. you know, and you deserve to go to a firm and get that same representation the way anyone else does. And so that way you can go take care of that, and then that money that maybe you were thinking about setting aside for a lawyer, you can think about getting an accountant or a payroll service or things that you can't ever get for free, and you know, direct the funds that way. And so I'm happy to talk to anyone about kind of the scope of this and more about it. And does anyone have any questions?
The second seminar is what day? Because the first one was on Thursdays.
They will be on, I believe, Tuesdays. Yeah, but every time we run it, it's on a different, it's not always going to be on Tuesdays. So we run it 3 times a year. So we run it spring, fall, and summer. So the next one coming up is on Tuesdays. But that doesn't mean in the summer it'll be on a Tuesday, if that makes sense.
What are the costs?
For the Access to Business Law Clinic, series, we charge around $50 just to, you know, get some investment and
For the whole thing?
for the whole thing.
Oh, gee.
And then for Create Your Own Job, when we run it at Roxbury Community College, it's $100, and that all goes to RCC for overhead and space and using kind of their programming.
Great presentation. Is the program solely confined to the area of Boston, or do you?
No, yeah, so we do things statewide, and if I had more time, I would have talked about more of those, but we actually run a version of the Create Your Own Job series in Framingham that ends actually tonight. I'll be there tonight doing that. And we are, you know, always looking for opportunities and partners to kind of expand and serve more. The Lawyers Committee is a statewide organization, so.
That's awesome.
Is that a sample of a restaurant or food?
Oh,
Went
yes.
through-
Yeah, that was the setup. Yvonne's my boss. So actually, the food that you just ate is one of our clients. So Carolicious is went through Food Biz 101 with us and actually won the pitch competition. Well, came in second in the pitch competition at the end. And so that's a 12-week long course, and the last class ends in a pitch competition in front of food industry judges. And they came in second, won a cash prize and all this other stuff. And they are also took Access to Business Law with us. And so, yes, that's why Food Biz 101 is so fun, because you get to eat food like this. Yeah.
Very good. That's awesome.
All
That
right.
was good. Very, very informative.
Thank you.
That was Sandy, that was gonna be my next question, if they just stayed in Boston, because I was standing there, and it's funny, I was standing there to the other dressers from Lawrence. I know at least, right off the top of my head, 2 young women in Lawrence who have started their business. They make money, but they're lost in terms of their business plan, in terms of marketing and all. Like, they're making money, but they don't even know if they're incorporated or not. Those, and it's women, Latinas in Lawrence. So I'm gonna connect with you. And Ivan, we have to sit down and do something on the Channel 7 piece, because I think this is a great kind of thing for the community to know. I didn't know it was just only $50. So I almost feel like calling these young ladies and say, I'll pay for it, because sometimes that's a huge barrier, more than anything.
And
So,
we waive the fee when businesses cannot afford it.
yeah.
So the 50, if the folks can afford to pay it, they pay it. If not, it's waived.
Yeah. But 50 is, you know, if they're in business, 50 is
Exactly.
very, very good. Okay, that was great. That was a great start. I learned a lot. I really, really did. I thought, you know, knowing Ivan, I didn't know he was so involved with business. Okay.